Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, October the 14th. I'm Gary Stevens. Open line following CBS News at the top of the hour. But in our next 22 minutes or so, we do have a break to take care of. We will be talking about water and boating safety with Ottawa County. Can we still say Sheriff Eric Westveer, or did the promotion finally come through?
Well, first of all, good morning, Gary. It's good to be
morning.
back again. And the promotion did go through a couple days after we last met, so that is official now.
Congratulations to Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer. And you have a question about water and boating safety, even though it's not time to play in the water anymore. He'll still be able to take it at 395-1450, 395-1450. Eric, I would think the emphasis now becomes, instead of people in the water enjoying the summertime fun, it is the boaters, it is the fishermen, it is the sports fishermen that really becomes the big concern for you and other members of the Marine unit.
That's exactly right. Like you said, a lot of the beach goers, that type of weather and that activity has slowed down, obviously, as we anticipate this time of the year with the weather patterns. But that doesn't mean that the activity out on the waterways has slowed down by any means. There are still quite a few boats in the marina. There's still a lot of recreational boaters. And like you mentioned, there are a lot of sport fishermen out there enjoying the waterways yet.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll catch the big ones and tell us all about it. If for more on a statewide basis during the Mike Avery Outdoor Magazine Show, Sunday mornings 5 till 8, right here on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC. Let me preface this next story more about the fact that we are dealing with a person who not makes the laws, but enforces the laws. And I want to get your thoughts about what Park Township is considering, adding gates to the pier at Howland State Park to control access, especially in dangerous water conditions. The Park Township officials are working with the Army Corps of Engineers, the State Department of Natural Resources, the Fire Department, as well as the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department to improve safety. The DNR would have to approve the changes because it would be at the state park. But can gates help in terms of keeping people away from the pier? Just how effective, in your experience, would those gates be?
Yeah, so just a little background on what you mentioned there. This is a group of us that started at Park Township's request in response to the emergencies that we saw spike in at the Howland State Park this year. And one of the many factors or ideas that we came up with was placing that gate out on the pier. The Army Corps of Engineers did approve that. The construction and work is being donated by King Company out of Holland. And our hopes is in inclement weather, when the waves are higher, now especially with the high water levels being that it's just inches off the top of that pier, that when we do have red flag conditions, that gate can be closed to help keep people off the piers, keep people away from those dangerous conditions, to reduce some of the accidents that we're seeing out there.
Could this possibly be done in South Haven as well? I mean, in Grand Haven as well, or is that maybe not as much? We still have the issues in that regard there too.
You're right. We do have the issues up there. Because of the structural layout, we don't tend to see as many, but that's not to say that the same dangers aren't there by any means. Grand Haven, when they redid their pier, they do have a gate on theirs that they do close during inclement weather.
And and of course, the situation in South Haven, that doesn't involve the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department, but that's the other major pier, the three piers that we have to keep an eye on in our area, but also water conditions and the safety of people who want to enjoy the waters, not just in Howland State, not just the piers, but also Tunnel Park, North Beach as well. Those are factors as well.
Absolutely.
I am going to ask you a sensitive question. If you don't wish to answer it, we certainly understand. On Monday, sentencing was handed down to Miranda Rowe, a 33-year-old South Haven, Spring Lake woman whose 6-year-old son, Ian Rowe, died in June in the waters of Lake Michigan in Holland State Park. She pled guilty to third-degree criminal child neglect. She was sentenced to 6 months probation, 6 months in county jail, and 2 years probation. The charges came in August after a 2-month-long investigation by the sheriff's department. I believe you were involved in the search for young Ian Rowe. He was in the waters, wasn't supervised. The red flag was flying. It's a tragic story more than anything else. But, to a certain extent, do you get a sense that maybe we unfortunately need cases such as this to maybe bring the point home about the seriousness when there are red flags? Hey, pay attention to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to answer that question directly because not every time that we have a drowning out there is neglect involved. I mean, there's accidents. But this one was definitely a case where neglect was involved. And we feel that neglect played a large factor or a main factor in the outcome of that drowning. So to say cases like this every time, accidents are going to happen, and we can do as much as we can possibly to prevent them, put safety measures in place. But at the end of the day, an accident is an accident. However, if neglect is involved, we do feel that this is the appropriate action to take when there's a criminal aspect, and to remind people that this is a serious thing, and these simple acts of neglect can result in the loss of life, as we saw on that day with Ian.
Yeah, again, it's a very tough situation. I'm going to ask you another tough question. Maybe you don't have it off the top of your head or quickly in front. Did we have a decrease? Did we have about the same amount of issues in terms of needing the sheriff's department and state police, Coast Guard as well, in terms of people in the waters needing help, dangerous situations this year? We were up, we were down. Can you sort of gauge that right now, or is it still a little bit too early to do that?
No, I mean, I don't have exact numbers, but I do track that over the seasons. I would say our response to incidences, whether it be water rescue calls, calls that were canceled while en route because they came out under their own power, the average amount of calls were probably about the same. We did see a spike in drownings this year, but the overall average number of calls that we responded to remained around the same.
And it's not just the out-of-towners either. Even though it's easy to say, wow, people who are, from away from this area that don't get the information. But then again, we have the locals as well. And, it's not just the out-of-towners in that situation. That's
right. Like you said, we have had, locals that have run into issues as well. I can say that there's a larger group of the individuals that we go out and respond to that are out-of-towners, but it's not just out-of-towners. I don't want to focus on just those people. It's locals as well, like you said.
If you got a question for Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer, he is with the Marine Unit. He'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. We're talking about boating safety. We're also talking about making sure that boaters are operating their vessels safely, not just with the proper equipment and the proper equipment that is in good working order, but also the operators are in good working order. Have we seen, again, maybe a bit too early, up, down, the same in terms of having to pull over boaters who might have had one too many, or maybe under the influence now that we have recreational marijuana, maybe under controlled substance as well? Is it gone up? Is it gone down based on what your experience, being the department's experience in trying to pull people over?
So this year we had a slight decrease in the amount of drunk boater arrests. We did see an uptick at the end of the season compared to the average over the beginning of the season. And that uptick was primarily right around Labor Day weekend, and the weekend after was higher than average for those 2 weekends. Again, overall season, we saw a slight decrease in the amount of arrests we had in the intoxicated boaters.
Let's get to a call, and I'm going to follow up on that in just a moment. Good morning, you're with Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer.
Yeah, with the gate on the pier in Holland, who would be in charge of that? And is that organization, city, state, or whatever, responsible and liable then? Just want to know. Catch you later.
Appreciate the call. Thank you very much, Eric.
Yeah, so that's actually been one of the main topics of our discussion with this gate is, who's going to be responsible for opening and closing the gate. So as a group, we collectively came up with some guidelines. The details exactly we're still working out, but the thought process right now is anytime we have a red flag condition out there, the gates will be closed with that red flag condition. And then we're looking at some seasonal times as well, where it'll be closed permanently when the state park is closed at that time. But again, we're working out exact dates, the ultimate responsibility, who that falls on. But if we set up guidelines as a group, what we're thinking is the DNR will probably be the ones to actually physically close it since they have staff that's on site all the time. But as a group, we're going to set up those guidelines.
Yeah, because it is a state park, and that's DNR basically oversight over all aspects of the park, not just the beach, but also the campground as well. 395-1450, 395-1450. The other question I was going to ask you, and it's more of a case of personal views and stuff like that. Did we have fewer vessels in the water this year? Maybe because of the COVID-19 situation, people maybe didn't take their boats out as much. Did you see, and I say the department, see as many boaters out this year? Or is it more? Was it less? Could you sort of gauge that this season?
Yeah, and in fact, we did notice it, and it was a major increase actually in boating that we saw. I heard statistics that overall boat sales this year were higher than average. We saw an increase of boating traffic at all of the ramps. And we also saw a significant increase in boating traffic on all of the waterways in Ottawa County.
More on that in a second. I got another call. Good morning. You're on the line with Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer.
Good morning. When my children were small, I made them wear life jackets to the beach. And that way, I used to say, if you don't want to wear it, then we're going to leave, And if more people would do that, I think that would help too, because that way, if they do wander out of your sight, especially if you got 3 or 4 kids, you don't have to worry as much, So I just thought I'd suggest that. Maybe they have to make some kind of a life jacket enforcement if you're under a certain age or something too.
All right.
So,
Appreciate the call. Thank you for the input, Eric.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. If you look back at many of the interviews I've done with you and different networks, one of the safety things I always put out there is PFD, wear them. And I'm not saying just on boats, anytime around water, especially with young children or inexperienced swimmers. And, example of that is the partnership we have with the Yacht Basin Marina out at the state park, where we have the boards with water safety information and the life jackets on those boards for people to use.
One final thing, and then we'll take a break, Eric, and it's going to be a follow-up to my point about, and my question about maybe more vessels, and you mentioned more vessels this year. It's nice, more people enjoying the waters, but it's also a case of we might have more inexperienced boaters, and that causes a different set of problems for you and others in law enforcement.
And you're absolutely right. And we did see that with the increase in the boating traffic this year. The traffic increased, the inexperienced boaters increased, which increased our activity, as well as some of the complaints we were receiving from residents on the lake and other boaters about the habits of the boats on there. So it made for a much busier season for us than normal. But we're still excited to see people out there enjoying the waterways, having fun with their families in the beautiful area that we live in.
Yeah, not just the boating safety, but also boating laws. No wake zones, keep them.
Right.
And that's another Pandora's box we could get into, but we don't have that much time left. This is more of a boating safety question than a boating enforcement question, Eric. What should boaters do right now in terms of the transition period? Autumn being transition, some might be still wanting to have some fun on the water. Others, time to get the boat into dry dock and getting ready for maybe 2021. How can a vessel owner and a captain, lack of a better term, sort of make sure that the boat is going to be fine in these autumn months, which might present some different challenges than maybe boating in the spring and summer?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a topic I like to hit on this time of the year because, again, it's in a transition period where we can see temperatures that are 39 and a couple miles away in the 50s. The same thing takes place out on the water. We're going to have nice days, we're going to have cool days, but the one thing that we try to stress to everybody is remember when you go out right now, to prepare yourself and to dress for the water temperature conditions, not for the air temperature conditions. Temperatures are going to begin to drop, and if something were to happen and you end up in the water, that water is not going to be the same temperature it was a month and a half ago. So in the event you come in an emergency, you want to be prepared, be in that water if it comes to that point, to prevent hypothermia, which can set in very quickly.
The other point I would think, and maybe you can clarify this because I'm a landlubber, I'm not a boater at all. But the thing is, does the weather change more drastically now or less drastically now? We know about the spring, how volatile spring weather can be. Is that the same way with fall as well, that things can change just like that?
And I'll take that, to the water, like you said. But as far as storms, we do see them out there quite often. Not pop-up storms like the spring, like you would say in volatility, but we do see more sustained winds, windier days with the higher wave action out there. So I'd say there's still some volatility, just not as pop-up as it would be in the spring, for lack of a better term.
And the reason why I brought that up, I mean, we always think about, the gales of November, Edmund Fitzgerald. But if people are going out, sports fishermen, going out to do their fishing, and they're thinking, well, weather forecast says just cloudy right now, and all of a sudden here comes some, and you've seen how Lake Michigan can act up.
Absolutely.
That can be a concern.
Yeah, and it can be. And that's, if you're going to go out fishing, which I enjoy myself, and it's a great sport, but make sure you check those forecasts, know what that weather is going to be, not just, like you said, immediate, but an extended forecast to prepare yourself so you can go out there safely and enjoy it and come back when you're done, hopefully with a good catch.
And not only with a good catch, but also like the pilots on an airline or an airplane, have a plan, have somebody have that plan so that if you're not back at the dock in time, they can go search for you, and those extra moments could come in very, very, very handy.
Absolutely.
Ottawa County Sheriff's Lieutenant Eric Westveer, I want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town. Look forward to chatting with you again next month.
I'll see you then. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. That's Eric Westveer of the Ottawa County Sheriff's Department.